Hey, today I'm going to talk to you about the one mistake that most executives continue to make, and they don't realize it until it's too late. I'm going to talk about this, and I'm also going to share it in the context of something that I learned early in my career that changed everything for me. And it involves your performance, and it involves my meeting of Barack Obama. Now, here's what I want to lay out for you is that a lot of executives want to get promoted to the next level. If you're in the C suite, you want to be a CEO. If you're not yet in the C suite and you're trying to get there, you want to get there. That is the goal. But here's something that you don't realize your performance is never going to be good enough to get you there. Your credentials are never going to be good enough to get you there. You can go to every Ivy League school. You can go to every certification program. You can get every credential that you want to name. It is not what's going to get you in the room that you need to be in the role that you want to be in to have the impact that you desire to have. It's not. And let me tell you a little story. Early in my career, I remember sitting in my office feeling like there was so much more that I could do. I had the senior title. I had all of the education necessary to do the job. But for whatever reason, I felt like there was so much more that I could do. I knew that I could show up bigger, but I wasn't having the opportunities to do so. And then I'll never forget the day that I was standing in a bookstore in Washington, D.C. in the airport. And I picked up the book, The Audacity of Hope by Barack Obama. I started reading the book. And next thing I know, I was engrossed in the book. And then I realized, wow, I think this man should run for president. But more importantly, I want to help him run for president. So I came back to South Carolina and told my friends. I'll never forget who I told. Told Malik, I told Neil, and I said, hey, this guy Barack Obama should run for president. He needs to run for president. And I'm going to work for him. And I'll never forget their response to me. They basically laughed at me. They said, man, Anton, you are an executive at a small nonprofit in South Carolina. Barack Obama is a national figure. He's a U.S. senator from another state of Illinois. How are you in the world going to work for him? And I told them a few simple words. I'm going to call him on the phone and get him to understand that I need to work for him. They didn't believe me. So let me tell you what I did. It wasn't about me sending a resume. It wasn't about me asking for a hookup or calling somebody that could help me to get in with Barack Obama. See, I had the credentials. I had the degree. I knew a few people, but I knew that there was not going to be what was going to get me promoted to the level that I wanted to be. See, this is the first thing I want you to understand, that just because you got credentials, that does not equal influence. Your output, your performance is not going to get you to where you need to be. See, I was already performing. And when it comes to working at the C-suite table, being a C-suite leader, performance is assumed by everybody. So it ain't about you working hard or having the credentials or having a P&L. Your performance is the expectation. I was already performing, but performance wasn't going to get me to Barack Obama. So here's what I did. I picked up the phone and I called his Senate office in Washington, D.C. And when I called, I said, hey, my name is Anton Gunn. I'd like to speak to Barack Obama. The immediate response that I got from them was, okay, what part of Illinois do you live in? And I said, I don't live in Illinois. I live in South Carolina. So why are you calling a U.S. Senator from Illinois? Because I want to talk to Barack Obama. well, you should call your own U.S. senator if this is about a policy issue. This ain't about a policy issue. I want to talk to Barack Obama. Well, they took a message. Nobody called me back. So then the next day, I picked up the phone and I called his Senate office again in D.C. And I said, I want to speak to Barack Obama. What part of Illinois are you from? I'm not from Illinois. I'm from South Carolina. I'm Anton Gunn. And they said, well, you should call your own U.S. senator. I said, I don't want to talk to my U.S. senator. I want to talk to Barack Obama. And they took a message and nobody called me back. Then I called again on day 3, had the same conversation. Then I called again on day 4 and had the same conversation. And then I said, well, maybe I'm doing it wrong. See, I'm calling to try to talk to Barack Obama and I haven't given him any context. So I went to his website and I filled out his form online to type in who I was, my credentials, my background, all of the things of why I wanted to talk to him. Then I pressed send and I waited a day and nobody responded to the form email that I sent in. So then I picked up the phone again on Friday and I called his office. And I said, I want to speak to Barack Obama. And they said, what part of Illinois are you from? I said, I ain't from Illinois. I'm from South Carolina. Well, why don't you call your own U.S. senator and stop calling us? I don't want to talk to my U.S. senator. I want to talk to Barack Obama. And they took a message and nobody called me back. So for the first full week, I called his office 4 times, and sent an email. So 5 contacts in 1 week. Nobody called me back. Then the next week on Monday, I called his office again, tried to get him early. Dialed a number, picked up the phone, Senator Barack Obama's office. Hey, this is Anton Gunn again. I want to speak to Barack Obama. I could tell they were starting to think that I wasn't right because I'm calling his office repeatedly over and over and over again. They didn't call me back. So on Tuesday, instead of calling his office in DC, I thought to myself, maybe I'm calling the wrong place because I don't want to talk to him about public policy. I want to talk to him about running for president and how I can help him in South Carolina. So I called his Senate office in Illinois. So I called Chicago. They picked up the phone and they said, how can I help you? I said, I want to speak to Barack Obama. And they said, do you need help with a constituent issue? Nah, I don't live in Illinois. Well, where do you live? I live in South Carolina. Well, you should call your own U.S. senator because they handle your constituent. I don't have no constituent issue. I want to talk to Barack Obama. We took a message and nobody called me back. I called the next day, Chicago, same scenario. I called the next day, same scenario. I called the next day, same scenario. So now at this point, I'm 10 phone calls in and nobody has returned my phone call or responded to my form email. Now, most people at this point would have quit. Some of you are probably thinking, Anton, you crazy. Because I know they were probably thinking that on the other end of the phone that I called the office 10 times and nobody has called me back. So then I started to think, I've called DC, I've called Chicago. Let me look at a map of Illinois to see where Senate offices are located. So I look at a map and I see that there is a Senate office in the Springfield area of Illinois. So when I say Springfield, here's what I want you to know. If you're unfamiliar with Illinois, Springfield is downstate. It is more the southern part, the more conservative part of Illinois. Maybe even more Republican, if you will, in the state of Illinois. It really means this, that if you're a Democratic senator from Illinois, that Senate office phone probably ain't getting a lot of phone calls. At least that's what I was thinking. So I did something that most people would never do. I picked up the phone and I called the office in downstate Illinois. And the young person, and I assume it was a young person because they sounded young on the phone, said, U.S. Senator Barack Obama's office, how may I help you? I said, who is this? And I said it with a little tone in my voice, Who is this? And she said, this is Mary, U.S. Senator Barack Obama's office. I think her name was Mary. I don't remember. And I said, well, listen, you don't know me, but you need to know me. My name is Anton Gunn, and I've called Barack Obama's office 10 times, and nobody has yet to call me back. And I want him to know that if he think he's going to run for president and he can get away with not calling people in South Carolina back, I'm going to make sure he effing loses. So write my phone number down, 803-361-45, and I'm not going to give you all the rest of my number out loud on the internet, but you got enough of it, you can find it. So I literally made a demand on the phone that he better call me back. And I hung up the phone on her. Now, at that point, to be honest with you, I felt like I had nothing to lose. I called 10 times. Nobody returned my phone call, responded to my email. So I made what I call a emboldened, audacious message. And I hung up the phone. Well, about 10 minutes later, I came back to my desk at work and I saw my BlackBerry on my desk and the light was blinking. It means I had missed the call. And I picked up the phone and I pressed 1 to listen to my voicemail. And here's what the voicemail said. Anton, this is U.S. Senator Barack Obama from Illinois. I can't wait to meet you. Can't wait to know you. We got all your messages. I want to talk to you because I think I'm going to run for president. Call me back when you get a shot. 312, I can't tell you the rest of the number. So literally, I pressed 1 and dialed back through the voicemail, and he picked up the phone. And here's what I said to him on that phone that changed the trajectory of my career and maybe my life. He answered the phone, and I said, listen, if you're going to run for president, you need me involved or you're going to lose. Listen to what I just said. You need me involved or you're going to lose. Now, why am I sharing this story with you? Because it was 2 weeks after that phone call, 2 weeks after that phone call, that his team sent me a laptop, a BlackBerry, and told me to open up a campaign office in the state of South Carolina that I was now in charge of as a political director. So here are the lessons that I want you to understand. That when I got that job, I became an advisor, a strategist, a leader in his early nascent presidential campaign to shape and guide the outcome. Now, I'm going to relate this to you and what you might be dealing with or what you are going through at the C-suite level. Here's the first lesson. And I already gave you that first lesson. It's just because you credentialed, just because you went to the right schools, just because you got the right degree, your output doesn't mean you have influence. It doesn't. What I said in those words to Barack Obama conveyed something totally different. That if I don't have Anton on my team, there's going to be a negative consequence. The outcome that I want is at risk if he's not here. I told him he needed me involved. I told the people on the phone that he was going to lose if he didn't call me back. That outcome means there's a risk. If that outcome of losing is going to close the door on him becoming president, at least they were going to do is to call me back. I'm not saying they had to hire me. I'm not saying that they had to make me an indispensable part of the campaign organization, but that's actually what ended up happening. He called me back. I became the first person hired in the state and helped lead the team here that helped him to secure the early primary win, and then ultimately the Democratic nomination. So I want to, again, remember the lesson. When you are in a room at the C-suite, are they saying, if he's not here, is our outcome of success at risk? That's the question. If you're in a room and nobody's thinking that if we don't have you in the room, it's okay. If they're thinking that, if they're thinking it's okay to not to have you in the room, then you are not indispensable. You're not going to shape the outcome. You're not going to have the influence. And most executives don't realize that until it's far too late, that your performance is not enough. And there's an invisible barrier that will keep you from getting to that highest level. And that's because people don't associate you with a surety to achieve the goal that they want. They don't see the outcome being at risk if you're not in the room. That's lesson number one. Now here's lesson number two. That through that process of that campaign, I helped break some barriers. I even broke some barriers myself. And here's what I want you to understand. That if you want to break barriers as a C-suite executive, you have to own the outcome. You got to own the outcome. And when I mean own the outcome, you got to stop waiting for permission and take leadership and ownership of something. So when you're sitting at the C-suite table and y'all are discussing a problem or a challenge or something that the organization has struggled with, don't sit on the sidelines and just offer ideas and critique. Hold your hand up and says, I'm going to own this, that I can deliver this. And basically what I was saying when I made that phone call, that if you want to win, you better hire me. Give me the ball, coach. Put me in the game, coach. Throw me the ball, to paraphrase Keyshawn Johnson. You want to win? Throw me the ball. Now, did I really know that I was going to do all of the things I did? Absolutely not. See, audacity means you got to have unmitigated gall. Audacity is boldness. Boldness. So I said, I will lead, I will own the outcome, I will deliver, give me the opportunity, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability to make sure we win. So the lesson is you got to stop waiting for permission. See, if you're sitting there thinking that your credentials, your degrees, your past performances, all of the roles that you played, where you went to school, all of those titles, you think all of those things are going to have people say, you know what? Oh, we looked at his resume this morning. He's well qualified, so we're going to give him the opportunity. No, it don't work like that. You don't get the opportunity because your resume demonstrates that you qualify. You don't. You get the opportunity because you make a decision that you're going to own the outcome. And that's literally what I did, is say, you know what? You need me involved. You got to have me. If you don't have me, you're going to lose. I know it sounds crazy, and I think I was probably crazy doing it, but I was desperate to get out of the rut that I was in. I was desperate to move away from the fact that I wasn't having the impact that I believed that I could have, that I deserved to have. I didn't have the role and the opportunity that I believed it was for me. My money didn't match my mindset. That's a bar right there. See, I had $1 million mindset, but I ain't have $1 million money. I wasn't even close to $1 million. I wasn't even close to six figures. It was just not a good time financially. But my mindset knew that I could play at a higher level and a bigger level. And no degree or credential or anything on my resume was going to get me there. It took me literally being indispensable, saying that I was going to be indispensable, showing that everything is at risk if you don't have me in the room. Everything is at risk if you don't have me involved. And then when I got involved, I said, I'm going to own the outcome. That's the lesson number two. Now, here's the final lesson. The final lesson is this. If you want to be that high-level executive that breaks barriers into the C-suite and beyond, you have to own and understand the language of audacity. See, the language of audacity demonstrates maturity. Now, let me give you the context in this story. At the time, I was 33 years old. I was pretty young. 33 years old, and some people say 33 is not super mature, but it also is not super immature. But at 33, I had the mindset of a 50-year-old. And not that I say that I was just old, but I had a leadership mindset that I had been exposed to leaders at a very high level, very senior leaders. And so I used the language of audacity to communicate my maturity around leadership. And that language was an example. Here's what's going to happen if this goes wrong. And so my context for you is this. You got to have the language of audacity and let people know, here's what's going to happen if I'm not involved. Here's what's going to happen if we get this wrong. So when you're at the executive table, when you're talking to your boss and your peers, don't just be the solution, but point out to them that if they don't employ you as a part of the solution, here's where it's going to go bad. And that's what I was able to do, is to give people some context of that. So I'm going to go back through real quick as I get ready to close. I'm going to close with these teaching points. And that is, your output doesn't equal influence. Just because you work hard, that's not going to equal influence. See, when you're at the C-suite level, everybody has good output. Performance is assumed. So what you need to be thinking, this is the mindset that you need to have. I want you to see it as I see it with my mind's eye. That when people ask this question, if he's not here, is our outcome at risk? And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that the leadership team in the early stages on the Obama campaign literally were thinking, we don't know this guy. We've never seen his resume. We don't know his background. But this man called us, said he's in South Carolina, and that if we don't have him involved, we're going to lose. That wasn't their exact words, but I'm certain that's what Steve Hildebrand was thinking. So he took my phone call. He took a meeting with me. And y'all, listen, this is what I'm trying to tell you. In this meeting, I never gave them my resume. I never did. I never sent my bio, my profile. I was able to secure a leadership role on the early presidential campaign of Barack Obama without sharing my resume, without them seeing my resume. And how was I able to do that? Is because I had the language of audacity that demonstrated maturity, and I was comfortable with saying that I will own the outcome and deliver. They saw how influential I could be, and that's how I got the opportunity. So I'm telling you that if you want to break a barrier, it's an invisible barrier. It's one that you're not going to learn about in a textbook. You're not going to learn about this in a classroom. The only person you're going to learn this from is me. And that is, your performance ain't enough. People assume that you are capable, qualified, and that you can deliver. That's how you got to where you are now. I know it's how I got to where I was, but it wasn't enough. I need to put into their mind that if we don't have him a part of this, the outcome is at risk. In addition to that, I had to put into their mind that if we bring him in, we got to let him lead and own the outcome. I stopped waiting for permission and I took ownership. Because if you sitting there at the C-suite level and waiting for your turn, you ain't never going to get your turn. It's like the person who drives, trying to get on the interstate and there's a yield sign, but they choose to stop because they're waiting for permission of some other driver to slow down and stop to let them in. No, that's how you cause an accident. Because if they slow down, people behind them are going to crash into them. And you probably going to get hit in the back because you stopped rather than yielding, rather than slowing down and weaving your way in. Well, exactly what I did is I weaved my way in to Obama's orbit without a resume, without a bio, with just sheer audacity. And that's the last point, is that you have to have the language of audacity. You need me involved. Now, the reason why I'm sharing all of this with you is because I want you to understand that you need to make this shift as a leader. You have to find a way to make this shift. See, leaders break barriers and they get to the next level when they prove that they are necessary. Not just credentialed, but necessary. And not necessary right now, that you're necessary to what happens next. If you don't get yourself into a position for people to believe that you're necessary for what happens next, you're going to stay stuck right where you are. And maybe you're comfortable with being right where you are. If so, then this conversation ain't for you. This conversation is for the leaders who want to go to that next level, who want to get to the next level, who want to be promoted to that next level or find their dream opportunity. And I will tell you this, I didn't know it at the time, but working for Barack Obama more than 17, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, as I'm talking to you right now, 19 years ago was a dream opportunity that changed everything for me. And I've seen it happen for so many other executives. And if you want to be and master breaking barriers as an executive, you need to figure out how to become essential. So if you're wondering about that and you need some help with that, I want you to shoot me a direct message with the word essential, because I can show you a game plan, a roadmap on how I was able to do the things that I was able to do. So that's it. That's all I got for you. I will be happy to see you all next Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel for Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. Have an amazing day.